Hi, everyone. My name is Emese Graham. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Manager at Flight Center Travel Group. I'm happy to be here with Carol Fergus, who's the Director of Global Travel, Meetings, and Ground Transportation at Fidelity International. Carol, hello.
Hi, nice to be here, everyone.
So we're calling this conversation DEI, the new talent retainer. But DEI as a talent retention factor, of course, is not new. So the reason that we're seeing new research data about job seekers valuing DEI in the workplace is because corporate researchers are only just now asking about DEI in the workplace. The truth is, equity deserving groups have always valued equity and inclusion at work. It's always been a factor in talent retention for women, for LGBTQ plus people, for people with disabilities, people who are racialized, neurodivergent people, and so on. And so every professional who experiences one or more systems of oppression firsthand. So what is new though, is that it's not that DEI is suddenly important when it wasn't before. What's happening is that for people who haven't had firsthand experience of systems of oppression, they're now becoming more aware of that. And they're joining the conversation, and they're pushing industries to join the conversation as well and to start doing something about systemic inequities. So in other words, the new thing is that there's a new generation of allies that has arrived. Carol, why do you think there's been this increased attention?
I think one of the big factors is the conversation started about 2 years ago, but it wasn't just about the pandemic. It was all the activities that happened before that, with the whole Black Lives Matters, et cetera, and companies jumped on that bandwagon and started looking at themselves. But with the pandemic, what that's done is it's opened more doors. It's given people more visibility and more opportunity. So whereas in the past, it was about going to the office, having to have that real structured life, what's happened now is you can work from home. So those opportunities are there for everybody. So, you know, people with disability can now come into, we can bring the outside world into their world, drop them an office, open them up, give them opportunity. You have young adults, you know, looking at apprenticeship schemes. You don't have to be a graduate anymore to come into the world of work. You can come in as a young adult, learn your craft, be sponsored, be supported, be developed, and have those opportunities. Doesn't matter that you're a woman, doesn't matter that you're a mother wanting to come back to work. It doesn't matter that you're an older person that thinks, I've retired, I really want to come back, I really want to continue to be part of that work life. So one of the things that the pandemic has definitely done is to give opportunities. Within the company that I work with, we have the pillars, and the pillars that we look at is individual well-being, so our people, their well-being. We then look at the technology, we then look at sustainability, we then look at cost being the lowest thing, but it's more about people. And across those pillars, everything that we do is about how important it is to embrace and bring people in. You know, more and more people are looking at the organizations that they want to work for, and they're looking and saying, you know, how diverse are you? Am I going to be important to you? Are you putting those structures in place? Are you putting those measures in place? And companies that sit in the background and ignore that will be very disappointed in years to come, because, you know, the young adults in particular are very fussy. They do care about the environment. They do care about being inclusive, being invisible, having a voice. And I think that's why that change has come. Companies have recognized that. So, you know, I honestly believe, you know, that that's the way forward, and that's what we should be doing. So in terms of that, I mean, we need to continue to educate the industries and professionals. So what would be your suggestion, Emese?
So for any business that's predominantly made up of people who don't have experiential knowledge of systems of oppression, it means being intentional about engaging with and learning from communities that do. So that can look like a lot of different things. It can be, you know, hiring an equity consultant, doing lots of cultural competency training, working directly with a minority recruitment organization, setting up employee resource groups, surveying customers, hosting community focus groups, and certainly expanding your supply chain with diversity in mind. For those of us in the travel industry specifically, there are a lot of special considerations because our service is across so many borders, literally and figuratively. So I find it's helpful to think about not just best practices, but also wise practices, right? So consider the unique needs of each local region that we impact. So an obvious example, I think, is language accessibility. So does the one language meet the needs of all of your markets? Probably not. Like, do you think about, what you need to build a more linguistically diverse team to better serve a certain community and just operate better, be a more effective company? So can you tell me where a little bit more about your priorities and a little bit more about the pillars that you've set up?
Yeah, so I mean, alongside those pillars, we look at organization, we look at employee, we look at traveler, and then supplier, and it needs to be a joint effort. It needs to be partnership. There's a number of ways. So let's look at the organization. In terms of the organization, they need to kind of put a spotlight, peel back those layers and say, what are we doing? What's good? What's bad? And even the bad, once they've done, they've looked at their data, they've had the conversations, they've had the meetings. A lot of people say that they're doing a lot, but they're not telling their people. They need to be voicing and saying, this is where we are at the moment. Hey, these are the good things we're doing, but we recognize that these are some of the things that we should be doing better, and bring them in and say, how can we all be empowered to make that difference, work together, the cup flowing over, take another cup, fill that cup, the other cup, fill that cup, so they're working jointly. So for the organization, for me, it's peeling back those layers, really getting engaged and engaging your people. When we talk about the employees, we have to help ourselves as well. Can't be hide your light behind a bushel. You can't be saying, it's not happening for me if you're not talking, if you're not telling, if you're not embracing and being part of change. Really important to do that and clearly spell out and write out, this is the journey that I want to take. And speak to your managers, find those sponsors. I've just been on a panel and it talks about sponsorship being acceleration. Absolutely. If you have those sponsors, you will accelerate, you will become visible, you will feel that you have a voice and a platform. When we talk about our suppliers, there's so many ways that the suppliers can support us. One of which is, bring those minority groups into your fold. There's lots of companies out there that, are underrepresented, and they are because they try to get into the larger companies and they say, you're too small for us, we cannot work for you. The way that our contractors can support with that is engaging with those smaller companies and saying, come and work with us, and jointly we can provide that service. Gives you opportunity, gives you development, gives you learning, and it gives you that exposure. So there's these little things that we can do to make a difference. So alongside our pillars, they're the sort of things that we should be embracing and working on, and it's important. So does that resonate with you?
Yes, I love what you're saying about transparency and like communicating to people where you are right now. That's such a big emphasis for me, is that not only do we need to like get visibility and make sure we're measuring important things, but that we're honest, as an industry, as corporations, about where we are now. Like if we're not able to even speak about the issues, how are we going to fix them, right? It needs to be a system of accountability that's sort of built into this work. And that means being honest about the gaps that are there, that we can say, yeah, we know it's an issue, let's do something about it. So for Flight Center Travel Group, the vision that we set is very similar to yours, where it's kind of operating in different spheres. So our vision is to work together to dismantle the barriers to equity for our people, for our customers, and our communities. And it's absolutely collaborative. It's absolutely, shared ownership. And it's about, holding ourselves accountable, not only to our present, employees and customers and communities, but also the potential, right? Who are we missing? Who do we need to bring into the fold? And how do we make sure that we're opening up that conversation and opening up our organization to those groups that have been underprivileged or have been pushed to the margins for such a long time. So I know that your apprenticeship program focuses on bringing those new voices into the industry, building the professional skills. Can you tell me a bit more about how that aligns with your pillars?
Yeah, so the apprenticeship scheme really evolved working with a new service provider. So we rolled out a new company globally, and part of that journey, you know, for people that know me, I do a lot for the around the diversity, equity, and inclusion piece, and I feel that, you know, it really is of an significant part of everything that we do. And obviously, you know, you're only as good as the people that you surround yourself with, and building a new team, a new an environment, changing the way that we operated, working through a pandemic really gave us the opportunity to say, okay, hey, how can we make a difference? And part of that discussion I had was internally first with my organization, and said, you know, this is something that I think that we should do. We have to bring in resource anyway. So why are we not giving opportunity to young adults? So we started with young adults, and it was felt that, you know, if we're paying for staff anyway, the commitment from the company would be that we would support a young adult through their journey and operate on an apprenticeship scheme, not just not graduates, but people that are from minority groups looking to come into the world of work in the city for large organizations, people that felt this is never going to happen for me. Well, we felt absolutely it is going to happen for you. And the way we can make that happen is through our third-party providers. So the way the model works is that we put together a training program. And within my department, I have a young lady that works with me. She is now training in the world of travel, and we've put a structure around that training. What we wanted to do was to make sure that it was a proper, structured training course. It wasn't you come in and we show you how to press the button. Engaging, you do projects, and every quarter this individual is assessed not just to see whether or not they're able to press that button and how to press that button, but are you enjoying it? Are we actually hitting the buttons for you? Do you feel included? Do you feel you have a voice? Do you feel that you're being supported? The other thing that was really important was that this person got the opportunity to be exposed and build their own network of individuals, so that when they start on that road to, this is the job that I've identified, I've got it, and I'm now going to do it based on the tools and the training that that's been given to me, that if they suddenly get stuck or think I'm having a wobble, or I feel overwhelmed, they can pick up the phone and they have that lovely network of people that have been part of their journey that they can speak to, that can support them as they continue on. And not only are they assessed by the company, but they're also assessed by an external assessor, which gives them a certificate at the end of the 2 years. And the beauty of this is you're giving opportunity to an individual. You would have had to recruit a person anyway, so your commitment is an apprentice as opposed to someone coming in already with that experience. You're exposing them to the world of work. You're giving them that visibility, you're giving them the confidence, you're giving them that network, and it's not costing the company any more. It's important when we talk about costs that they're paid properly, so it doesn't seem as though it's slave labor. That's not what we wanted to do. We wanted them to feel I'm going to work and I'm being paid for what I do. So we're very supportive there as well. And the other final thing, which I think is the pinnacle of this, at the end of their journey or whilst doing their journey, the companies that they work for have access to hundreds and hundreds of their clients. So as opportunities come up, what does success look like? Success is they reach the end of the process and they bag the job that they wanted, and they can go out there and they can work. As far as I'm concerned, it's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you want to do it? So that's kind of the model in a very sort of, there's a lot more to it. And obviously I'm more than happy to explain, but it's something that I'm really passionate and excited about, it's giving voice, opportunity and everything to a young adult. So yeah, that's kind of the model. Go play.
Exactly. I mean, incorporating DEI is not a business liability. Like you're saying, it does not need to be this exponential cost or this financial burden. This is an asset, and it's an asset that for both parties. I love that.
Yeah, really exciting.
Yeah, definitely. So I think about your apprenticeship program as like a long-term strategy, thinking about you know, what do we want our industry to look like in the future? Like, how do we grow that pool of talent, you know, with a long-term vision in mind? And I'm also thinking about like, how can companies pair that with some like more short-term tactics as well, you know, to make sure that we're really supporting DEI efforts strategically. And so things like, you know, reviewing your job advertisement language for like gender bias or cultural bias, neurotypical bias, and making use of job boards and networks that are specifically inviting equity deserving groups. And so the work that you're doing for like building that pool of apprenticeships and applicants is so key to be a part of that. I guess I wanted to ask about how you see this in the future, right? Like how you see what would happen if people actually took this seriously, right? So for me, I think about, you know, if the tourism industry actually took DEI seriously and said, you know, we're going to move away from systems that exclude, we're going to move away from systems that exploit, you know, as you were saying about making sure that people are fairly compensated. You know, I think about what it would look like if our organizations were all made up of people who have firsthand knowledge of traveling with a disability, or who have firsthand knowledge of traveling as a transgender person, who have close and personal relationships with destinations all over the world. Like how different the organizations would be, and how much more embedded like social sustainability would be into our ethos as an industry, and how like just monumental of a change, just in the realm of thinking about really incorporating DEI into our space. Can you speak a little bit to the future that you envision?
I think for me, DE&I will become our DNA. It will be in our veins. It will become the norm. It will be no different to you waking up in the morning and having your cereal, your lunch, your sandwich for lunch, and your dinner. Become part of your life. That's what the future needs to be. And I can't understand why that cannot be. You know, when you look at an individual, your first thought shouldn't be that person's Black, that person's a woman, that person's disabled. Obviously you see that, but what you need to do is stop, think, listen, learn, and educate. And the stopping is you stop and you see them, hi. You then think, oh, this is a person, I wonder what, you know, what is it? You engage with them, you stop, you think, you listen. Together, you learn together, you educate each other, you know. Each person will get something out of that conversation, and that education is what binds us, what pulls us together. Companies will be much better if they were far more diverse and they had every type of person at the table. That's what the future looks for me. Let us all be at that table. Let us all have the opportunity. We need to recognize in ourselves our own levels, but we must not limit ourselves. So I'm not telling you that when you reach a level that you're limiting yourself. What you're saying is we reach destinations at different stages. It's important that we recognize that. Don't shortfall yourself. If you feel you want to get to the top of that ladder, that's cool too. But there's some people that say, I only want to go halfway, but the people behind, make sure you drag them up, and the people in front look behind and say, hey, do you need some help to get there? If that person says, no, I'm happy here, that's cool. That's cool too, but don't stop the people from behind you going past them, moving up the ladder. So I think we get there at different stages. The opportunity is there for everybody. That's what we should be doing. Bring us all to the table. Let us all be able to speak. And that's what the future looks like for me.
That's right. Carol, it's been so awesome having this conversation with you. Thank you for spending your time with me today.
And thank you so much.